Many, many years ago, there was a man who lived in a kingdom. And in this kingdom, there was a terrible plague. It was a plague probably not like Corona, a little more intense, where people died, they got sick, and they died very, very quickly. And the king brought the best doctors to find what can we do to solve this problem. And no matter what they did, they couldn't find a way to solve the problem. And there was a young man who was a carpenter. And one of his family members got sick. And this family member always liked to drink a lot of water. And he got very, very sick. And they said the least we can do for this man is give him a lot of water. So they gave him tons and tons and tons of water. And the carpenter noticed, when I give this sick person water, a lot of water, he gets better. None of the doctors realized that. Only this one carpenter, a simple man, a simple carpenter in the countryside realized it. So he said, I have to tell the people. And he gave a lot of water to a next door neighbor. He tried the same thing. And sure enough, the next door neighbor got better. And he told friends. And when they got it, they took a lot of water, a ton, water, so much water. And they got better. And the carpenter said, I have to share this with the king. I have to tell the king we could save the whole nation. People will die and we could save their lives. But I don't know the king. And how am I going to get in? How am I going to send him a message? So the man said, I must travel to the palace. So he travels to the palace and he tries to knock on the door of the palace. And they said, we don't know who you are. You can't come in. I have such an important message to the king. The king's busy trying to deal with the plague. He has no time to talk to you. So the man tried, he tried. Finally, they said, listen, you can write a little note to the king. And we'll send this note to some of the king's advisors. And the advisors give to the advisors, and the advisors give to the higher advisors. And eventually, maybe, if it's a really important message, it'll go to the king. So the man's so happy. Wow, I have an audience with the king. I could write in a message that the king's going to hear the message. So he writes, Dear king, I finally have a solution. It's free. We can just give water to the people that are sick. It'll solve their problem. And he puts it in. And he writes it, Dear King, please listen to my request. I know you hear so many requests. It's for you. It's not for me. I'm not asking for anything. Just an idea that you can help save the whole kingdom. And the king, and he writes the message, and he puts it in there. Good. He goes home and he says, maybe the king will see the message. Maybe he won't. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. And he travels. Takes him a long time to get home. And people say, did you write the message to the king? Did you get to the king? He said, I tried as much as I could, but they allowed me to write a message. Ooh, you can write a message to the king? Is the king going to see it? Maybe he will, and maybe he won't. So other people heard about this idea, and they traveled long and far to get to the palace, and they also wrote messages to the king. And when they left, they really weren't so happy, because they said maybe the king will see the message, and maybe they won't. Maybe he won't. Maybe he won't even find the message. How am I supposed to know if the king's going to see this message? So they wrote the message on a decent piece of paper, and they wrote some energy, but it really wasn't so much. One day, this man was a carpenter who had such a great idea to save people's lives. He hears about someone who lives near the palace, who's close to the king. And he hears that if you can get to this man and give this man one of those notes, this man will give a note to the king. So he travels all the way back to the palace, and he writes in beautiful language, and he finally finds the friend of the king. And it takes a long time. There's a long line outside this friend's house. And they say, sorry, here, you can drop off all these messages here, and the man will see the messages, but he only takes some of them to the king. So the guy's, okay, it's a better chance. Maybe the king will see it at some point, right? So he writes the message, he puts it in. When he puts it in the box, he notices that there are thousands of other messages in the box. He said, my message is never going to get there. Okay. Other people also writing, they're not writing. They write very beautifully, fine. He goes home, and they said, no, did you write the message to the king? And he said, I tried, but I put it in a box to the friend of the king, and there were thousands of messages there. Fine, other people hear the idea. They also travel to put the note in, and they see this thousands of messages. They don't feel so excited. Fine, weeks go by. People are dying left and right, and the man is desperate. He wants to speak to the king. Please, I want to speak to the king. How do I speak to the king? He travels again. I'm going to try no matter what I can. I'm going to try. As he's there, he's up at night, and he's traveling. He's walking back and forth, pacing at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And one of the king's guards says to him, what are you doing here? He said, I have a way of saving everyone in our nation from this plague. I have a way to save their lives. And if I can get it to the king, it's easy and it's free. And we can save the lives of thousands of people in our country. But I can't get to the king. So the soldier said, what's the idea? He said, well, I've told you, I've tried it as much as I tried it. I tried this message. People around me tried it. It worked great. I give them a lot of water. And it saved a lot of water. And it saves their lives. The soldier says, I know of a way maybe you can get to the king. But you can't tell anybody that I told you. He said, tell me, how do I do it? He says, the king sometimes can't sleep at night. And he's up. And he has a special place, a special balcony that he goes to. And he looks out on the balcony. And he can see all around. And there's a place he can see that balcony. He can see all the way down that's outside of the palace. And the sound is set up in a way that he can hear that spot very well also. You're not going to see him when he walks by that place because there's a special one-way mirror that protects him. He can see you, but you can't see him and you can't hear him. But you're in a very special place. You stand in this one place and you speak and you speak and you speak. If the king's awake at night, he can't sleep. He has insomnia. And he walks by and hears you talking, he'll hear your message. Go to this place. I'll tell you exactly where it is. Don't tell anybody that I told you. And say your message again and again and again. And the man gets very excited. He said, I'm just a carpenter. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. But maybe I can save people's lives. And he goes to this spot. And he's so excited. And he gets there at 11 o'clock at night. And he stands there, looks around, no one's here. And he starts saying his message. Please, king, if you can hear me, I have a message. It can save the entire kingdom. Please hear me. Just give these people water and it'll save their lives. A lot of water, a lot of water, a lot of water. And he says the message really, really strongly with his heart. His soul he puts into this message. He says, the king might not be standing there right now. But I know that the king might be walking by. And he says the message again and again and again and again. And he stands it from 11 o'clock at night until 4 o'clock in the morning. And finally he's exhausted and he goes home and he goes to sleep. Doesn't know if it worked. The next day he does the same thing. 11 o'clock at night till 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning till it starts getting light. He does this again and again for days and days and days. Eventually he's exhausted. He can't do it anymore. He said, I don't know if it's working or not. I don't know if the soldier told me something that's true or not. And he goes home. And weeks go by. And after 2 weeks, he hears a knock at his door. It's a royal delegation. The king would like to see you. What, me? Oh, I hope I'm not in trouble. No, it's a good thing. They bring him all the way to the palace into the king. The king said, one night I was awake. And I looked down in that place that you were. And I saw you talking to me. And I listened to everything that you said. And I tried it with some of my people, my close advisors that were sick, and I gave them a lot of water. And lo and behold, they got better. I'm going to take that idea and spread it throughout the whole country, and in your schus, you've saved the lives of who knows how many people. Rabbi Isai, when we daven, we're not like the person who goes to the king's palace and sends a message, and maybe the message will get there. And we're not like the person who gets to the king's friend and gives a message to the king's friend. And there are thousands of messages that the king's friend sees, and maybe he'll bring it to the king. And we're not even like this person who talks and talks and talks and talks, and maybe the king will walk by and listen. Rabbi Isai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself listens to what we say when we speak to him every single time. We have a personal audience with HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Let that sink in. Think about that. Real time. Right now, I don't see you. I personally don't see you, but I know you're listening to me right now. I hope you got this far. When we talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's real time. Just as I'm speaking to you, but I can't see you. He's looking right at us when we talk to him. He's listening. HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, the same HaKadosh Baruch Hu that created the world. The same Hashem that spoke to Adam and Chava. The same Hashem that gave the Torah at Har Sinai. The same Hashem that every single door does everything that he does. It's the same HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The same one that split the sea. It's the same Hashem. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that same one is listening to you when you talk to him. Every single time. That, my friends, we daven that way, everything changes. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu realizes that we realize that he's listening, the tefillah is totally different. Let Kosh Baruch Hu help us. Shema kolenu Hashem Elokeinu. Chuz v'rachem aleinu. To hear our tefillas every time we daven. And help us to know and to feel that when we talk to Him, that He's listening to every single word. Ken Yiratzon.